You know that person, right? The one who seems to thrive on chaos? They're like a master firefighter, always putting out these huge blazes. But if you look really, really close, you start to wonder if maybe they're the ones starting the fires. Well, today we're diving deep into an incredibly chilling and effective pattern of manipulation. We're breaking down the blueprint of the chaos architect.
That quote really hits home, doesn't it? And look, this is not just about someone who's, a little dramatic. No, this is about a person who actively uses instability as a tool, even as a weapon. And that's the dark paradox, right there. Their incredible skill in a crisis, it isn't a sign of strength. It's a huge red flag that they might very well be the source of the crisis itself. It's all about control, just disguised as competence.
All right, so let's get into the anatomy of this thing. To really understand how to defend against this pattern, we have got to take it apart piece by piece. We need to define it, understand its core parts. We're talking about a very specific and very calculated kind of control.
Okay, let's break this definition down because every single word here is critical. The chaos architect. See, they're not just clumsy or unlucky. They are an architect. The chaos is designed. Strategic chaos injection. That's the action. They are deliberately injecting instability into your life. And why? To exploit a really basic human drive, our desperate need to reduce anxiety. I mean, when we feel overwhelmed, our brain just scrambles for the fastest way to feel safe again. The architect knows this, and they set themselves up not just as a path to safety, but as the only path.
And what's their endgame in all of this? It's actually incredibly simple, and that's what makes it so sinister. Two things. First, control by crisis. If you create the storm, you get to be the captain of the ship, right? Everyone else is just panicking, so you get to make all the calls. And second, guaranteed gratitude. When they finally calm the storm they created, what do they get? Immense relief and thanks from their target. This gratitude is like a drug for them. It's a potent form of what's called narcissistic supply, and it just feeds their ego and makes them feel absolutely essential to your life.
So how do they pull this off? Well, they lay down some very careful groundwork, and it's built on these three pillars. You've got problem manufacturing, literally creating issues out of thin air. Then the solution monopoly, which is where they make sure they're the only one who can possibly fix it. And finally, the gratitude trap, which turns your own sense of relief against you to lock in their control. We're going to see how these three things build their entire twisted strategy.
Okay, so let's look at how these pieces fit together into a cycle. And this is key. It's not a one-off thing. It is a repeatable, devastating system designed to keep you dependent. Understanding this cycle, well, that's absolutely everything when it comes to breaking it.
And here it is, the whole blueprint in 3 simple steps. It kicks off with them manufacturing a crisis. That crisis then allows them to monopolize the solution, cutting you off from anyone else who could possibly help. And it all ends with this so-called heroic resolution, where they get to ride in and save the day. See? Start to finish, every single step is orchestrated for their benefit.
So, phase 1, crisis manufacturing. The whole point here is to achieve cognitive overload, to completely overwhelm your brain. The crisis they create has to be big enough and stressful enough that it just eats up all of your mental and emotional energy. When you're in that high alert state, your critical thinking just goes out the window. You get tunnel vision. All you can focus on is putting out the immediate fire. And that is exactly where the architect wants you. Totally overwhelmed, exhausted, and desperately looking for a leader.
And what do these crises look like? Gosh, they can be anything. Suddenly there's this huge, bizarre conflict with a friend that makes no sense, and guess who's the only one who can mediate? Or a surprise financial emergency pops up that needs their immediate expert help. Maybe they'll even subtly sabotage something you rely on. Your computer dies right before a critical deadline, and then, whoosh, they swoop in to save the day. Or they'll start one of those circular arguments that just goes nowhere and drains you until you do anything to make it stop. The common thread here? The problem is always sudden, it feels incredibly urgent, and it demands all of your attention right now.
All right, now we're in phase 2, and this might be the most twisted part of the whole thing, establishing that solution monopoly. So the crisis is in full swing, right? Now the architect works overtime to cut you off from any other source of help. If you suggest calling a friend, they'll say something like, they'll just make it worse with their bad advice. They systematically undermine anyone and everyone who could possibly help you, painting them as incompetent or untrustworthy. This isolates you completely and funnels you right back to the architect, making them look like the only person on earth who can fix this. They become your sole source of order in a chaos they custom-built just for you.
And this quote just nails the final phase. After all that stress, days, maybe weeks of it, the architect finally solves the problem. And that feeling of relief you get, it's overwhelming, it's powerful. But here's the psychological trick. Your brain doesn't care if the problem was real or manufactured. It just knows the stress is gone, and it floods you with feel-good chemicals. And who do you attribute that feeling to? The architect. You start thinking, wow, my life is so chaotic, but I'm so lucky to have them to fix it. And that, right there, is the gratitude trap. You're not grateful for a stable relationship. You're grateful that the person who started the war has just called for a temporary ceasefire.
So we've seen how the cycle works. But why does it work so well? To get that, we have to look at what's going on psychologically for both the architect and their target. This isn't just about actions. It's about deep-seated needs crashing into each other.
And this slide shows it all. This is the toxic collision of needs that makes the whole thing work so perfectly. On one side, you have the architect. They're driven by this bottomless need for control and to be the center of the universe. Every crisis they solve just confirms their own grandiose story about themselves, that they're the indispensable hero. And the gratitude you give them, that's pure narcissistic supply. It's their fuel. Now look at the other side. The target has a completely normal human need for order and relief. We are all hardwired to reduce anxiety. The target isn't weak, they're just human. But over time, this repeated cycle conditions them into a state of learned helplessness, where they start to genuinely believe they can't handle life without the architect constantly pulling the strings.
Okay, enough diagnosing the problem. Let's talk about the solution. Because the really good news is, once you can see the blueprint, you can absolutely dismantle it. Breaking free isn't about some big, dramatic confrontation. It's about calmly and firmly refusing to play the part they wrote for you in their drama. And here's a clear two-step plan to do exactly that.
Your defense is built on two simple but incredibly powerful actions. First, you're going to become a detective and conduct a crisis source audit. And second, you're going to enforce a brand new rule in the relationship called the delegation boundary. These two things, practiced consistently, will literally starve the architect of the chaos and control they need to operate.
This question right here is your superpower. Seriously, the next time a new crisis erupts and you feel that anxiety spike, just pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself this question with radical honesty. Become a chaos detective. Trace the problem back to its origin point. Was everything fine yesterday? Did this emergency only appear right after a specific phone call or conversation or action from this person? More often than not, I bet you'll see a direct line of causation. And just the act of identifying it breaks the illusion. You stop seeing it as some random life event and start seeing it for what it is, a tactic.
So once you've identified the chaos as manufactured, you implement the boundary. You have to refuse to take emotional ownership of the problem. This script is polite, but it is firm. It says two things loud and clear. One, this problem is yours, not mine. And two, I support you, but I am not solving this for you. It delegates the responsibility for the solution right back to the source of the problem. This completely short-circuits their plan. I mean, think about it. They created the problem so they could be the hero. By refusing to be the victim, you remove their heroic role from the stage.
Finally, and this is so important, you have to dismantle the reward system. When the inevitable resolution comes, you have to consciously change your internal monologue. Instead of thinking, I'm so grateful they fixed everything, think, I am so relieved this is over. See the difference? One gives them power, the other acknowledges your own emotional state. You cannot give them a standing ovation for putting out a fire they set. A simple, glad that's handled, is more than enough. You are refusing to provide the narcissistic supply they engineered this entire situation to get.
So as we bring this all to a close, let's just zoom out and put all the pieces together. Understanding this pattern isn't about assigning blame. It's about reclaiming your own peace and your own stability. It's about recognizing the game so you can finally choose not to play.
And if you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. The problem is the strategy. The solution is the performance. For the chaos architect, the crisis you're experiencing isn't a real problem. It's a strategic move. And the fix, that big heroic rescue, isn't a genuine act of help. It's a performance designed to win your applause and your dependency.
First, always remember who the chaos architect is. They are the person who creates problems just to control the solutions. Their entire operation is built on exploiting your natural human desire to feel safe and calm. The chaos is their tool, your anxiety is their fuel.
And remember the pattern. It always kicks off with crisis manufacturing, designed to overwhelm you.
That leads straight into the solution monopoly, where they isolate you and force you into dependency. And it all culminates in that heroic resolution where they solve the problem they created, trapping you in that cycle of gratitude and control.
But awareness breaks the loop. By using the crisis source audit, you see the problem for what it is, a strategy. And by implementing the delegation boundary, you refuse to play your assigned role. You refuse to participate in their self-written drama. And that is how you reclaim your stability, one manufactured crisis at a time.
So I will leave you with this one final question to consider. In your relationships, in your work, in your life, just take a moment to ask yourself, whose drama are you starring in?